Welcome back. We are now sitting down with Canadian author Mahataab Narasimhan to talk about her newest book, Mission Mumbai. So welcome to the show, Mahataab.
Thank you so much for having me.
So this is your sixth Canadian publication, and which is amazing in itself. Can you tell us a bit about Mission Mumbai?
Absolutely. So Mission Mumbai, like I love multi-level layered stories. So this one on the surface is about two friends, Rohit Lal and Dylan Moore. And both of them are joined together by their love of reading books, especially fantasy books. And they bond together, they form this really strong friendship, but that friendship is tested when Rohit invites Dylan to go to Mumbai with him for a wedding. And their friendship is really kind of stretched to the limit over there, and each boy discovers something about themselves. So the reason I wrote this book was basically, twofold. One is that, there is a lot of literature in the market available these days of how, immigrants come to North America and they have to settle down. So I wanted to kind of twist that thing and say, what would happen if we put a North American in a exotic country, or let's say in India, and have him cope with something like that, and just see. So that's why the entire story is told from the perspective of Dylan Moore, who's the North American, who's the American, and he gets into a lot of trouble because he's, so the voice is also of Dylan's, and I could put a fresh perspective on India because it's something that, he wouldn't be aware of, especially, sacred cows and stuff like that. So he ends up, whacking one right in the beginning of the novel. And the other reason is, again, with all of this social media, most of us keep feeling that our lives are not interesting enough, that the grass is greener on the other side. And with social media so prevalent these days, everyone has this feeling of feeling my life is not good, my friend's life is better. And that's exactly what both of these boys start out feeling. One is rich, one is not, one has got family, one does not, and both the boys think, the other boy has got, my friend is living a better life. But it's once they go to India, they really spend time with each other. That's when they realize, you know what, my life doesn't suck after all. I think it's okay. And they start appreciating it. So that's the reason. But then, of course, there's a lot of funny stuff in here.
And their age group that we're looking at in here, the
about
kids are?
About 12-ish.
Well, yeah. I was reading a little bit of it. I started reading it, and it looks so interesting. So I would definitely pick it up as well. But you have been focusing a lot more on children. The last book that you had was Looking for Lord Ganesha, and this one, Mission Mumbai. You've been focusing on the younger age group. Tell me, why is it important to kind of bring that diversity out to children's literature?
It's really important that kids see themselves in the books, to be able to identify with it. Otherwise, they always feel that they are on the periphery. And of course, there is so much of literature, of course, with Harry Potter, with the Percy Jackson series. Kids like the books, but they don't really identify with them because they do not see themselves in these books. So they're always on the periphery. So when I wrote my first trilogy, in fact, the first one was The Third Eye, and that won the Silver Birch Award in Ontario. One of the things when I did the school visits, I kept hearing is that all of a sudden, the Asian kids felt so empowered because they could see themselves, they could see their culture, their mythology, all of that reflected in the books. And even some things like pronunciations, what is it, chapati or ganpati or, stuff like that, chicken curry. And it, the teachers used to say that the South Asian kids who usually were quiet would all of a sudden blossom whenever they were doing these chapter readings, and they would come out and explain things the teacher or their friends didn't know, and it was empowering for them. And I love doing that because I think all the nationalities, all the cultures should be represented in the books that kids read. To me, that's really, really important, and the younger you start, the better. And I still, when I go to a bookstore, I find myself in the kids section. I don't know why. I mean, I do read adult books, but those are rare. Yeah, it is fun. And most people think that writing for kids is tough, or rather, it's easy, but it really is very tough because, they are an unforgiving audience. Most adults will plow through the first 40 or 50 pages, even if it's not interesting. Kids, not a chance. If you don't hook them from the first paragraph, you've lost them. Yes. Completely lost them. So it's really completely unforgiving.
And I'll let out a little secret here. I love reading children's books, and I'm talking like really kids books. Ishana would tune out, and she's not looking at the book anymore, and I have to finish reading that book, even if it's like 10 pages.
Right.
Right. You're absolutely. They just tune out.
So I
in
can't
effect,
wait to read this one.
Well, thank you.
Well, these books, I mean, the identification piece is huge because you're right. You know, there's some wonderful novels out there, but our South Asian kids really being able to identify themselves in it. So I'm thrilled that this is available to the children. What are some of the challenges you faced with respect to the publications and actually getting out there? Diversity is big. Canada's all about diversity, but some of the challenges you faced in getting your books published.
I was always a good reader, but I never really wanted to write my own book. But then I did because my father passed away a couple of years before that. And I started out writing a diary or a journal about life back in India. And that sort of morphed into, I'm going to write a book. No training, no creative writing classes. I just said, I'm writing a book. So I did. It took me about 4 years to write the first one. And lots and lots. I think I got over 100 rejections. You know, every time I got a rejection letter, I would say, okay, you know what, decision time. Give up. Keep going. And I did, and normally, you know, it just takes one. So I made a few connections within the children's literature community. Someone introduced me to an editor at Dundurn, and you know, after like over a year and a half of rejections, this guy read it. His name was Barry Jowett. He read it in a week. Got back saying, we've discussed it, we love it, it's going to print, and that's it. That was the happiest day of my life.
We are super excited for you and all your upcoming projects. We wish you the best. I know Surbhi's really excited to read Mission Mumbai. I think both of us are. We both want to read it, so we encourage our viewers to check them out as well. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Stay tuned. We'll be back right after the break.